Greetings to all the leaders of IMCS gathered this year for the World Assembly. My name is Kevin Ahern. As some of you know, I am a former IMCS International Team member. I am also on the leadership right now of the international team of ICMICA. It's my real pleasure to be able to send you a brief message. I wish I could be with you in person, but unfortunately family and work commitments prevent me from traveling this month. But please know that I am with you in spirit. Last year marked the 20th year of my engagement in these crazy movements of Pax Romana, of IMCS and ICMICA. And it's one of those things where it's hard sometimes to explain to people outside of our movements what it's all about. But you all there gathering for the assembly, I think, know what our movements are all about and know the value of it. So I know many of you are taking time out of your busy schedules yourselves, your families, your work life, and spending time to travel. So I think it's a real commitment to the movements and also to the church that you're doing that. Congratulations to Edward, Evelina, and Father Fratern for all that you have done over the last 4 years. I think it's really laudable what they have done given the limited resources that we have. ICMICA is also in the similar situations and all the challenges that they face both within and outside the movements. I think it's really an amazing job that our student leaders are doing both at the international level and at the regional level. So thank you to all the regional and international team members. I know I always am impressed by the work of IMCS student leaders. Thank you also to the national leaders and to those who are standing for election to the international team. It's an important sign of your commitment of what you're doing, and I know your work has a big impact. While it's not easy to manage a movement like ours, especially with no funding, I still really believe that our movements have something special to offer and have an important place to play in the world right now. Even though we're approaching our 100th anniversary, we may be getting old as a movement in some level, but I think we're still full of vitality in many ways. At the heart of IMCS's mission is a commitment to the evangelization of the student milieu. This I think is a really important part and really powerful mission and powerful element of IMCS's role in the world. But what does this evangelization mean? What does it mean to witness to Christ in the student world today? What does it mean to witness to Christ in a world marked by violence, division, rising xenophobia, the crisis around migration? What does it mean to witness to Christ around the question of climate change? How about in the church with all that's happening in there? So as students, you all have an important task to witness to Christ in the world right now. But what is that? What is our task? Why do we do it? And what is this type of evangelization? As the two movements of Pax Romana, both IMCS and ICMICA, share a common approach to evangelization. Traditionally, we have described this as the spirituality of action. And we share that with other movements too, with YCS, with the young Christian worker movements as well. But for us, the spirituality of action is rooted in the gospel call of Jesus to go out and to transform the world. We don't put prayer aside, we don't put contemplation aside, but we are not indifferent. We are not inactive. We are protagonists. We believe that by our baptism, we are called, no matter what our age is, to be full agents of the world and in the church. This is an important contribution of our movements that we've made, both historically to the life of the church, to promote the role of lay people in the church, and also in terms of human rights, and currently now the work of IMCS in terms of youth participation in the UN system. These are important elements and important voices that you are making there. IMCS members, in other words, are not the future of the world or the future of the church, but agents in the present. You are the church in the world today. You are your own countries today. You know this, right? But government leaders and church leaders like to say, oh, you're just the future. We are the present, right? So Pope Francis has affirmed this in very powerful ways in his messages to young people over the last few years, where he has talked about young people as being protagonists and not spectators. He urges young people to go out and make a mess of the world, to get out into the streets. So how do we do that? There are many forces at work that don't want us to be protagonists. There are many forces at work that don't want us to be active agents in evangelization, that want us to be passive, that want us to be indifferent, that want us to just buy whatever they're selling. There are many forces that don't want us to ask questions. Perhaps there are university professors, as a university professor myself, I can perhaps say this, that don't want students to ask questions, right? Or to challenge the status quo. Maybe there are even chaplains like that. But how can we do that? We can't do that alone, right? This is why our movements are so important. In light of the challenges facing our planet and our people, in light of the challenges facing our church, individual actions are important, but they're not sufficient. They're not enough. We have to have movements. We need movements to give people the spaces to participate, the spaces to find their voices, the spaces to go out and make a mess of the world. And this is where I think movements like IMCS and ICMICA play a really important role. And this is where I think we can work together more on evangelization. For ICMICA this year, we are focusing on globally on two big areas of action. One is the crisis of democracy. We can see this around the world. Democracies are in crisis. So what does that mean? Traditionally, our movements have played a role, especially in Europe and parts of Latin America and in parts of Asia and Africa, on questions of democratic good governance and democracy and democratic election monitoring. But where are we going? What is the future? The other area of interest for us is church reform. So in light of what is happening in the Catholic Church, locally and globally around the world, what role can our movements play? What role can lay voices of lay professionals and intellectuals play in helping to make the church better and better suited for its mission? So those are the two big areas of focus for us. We hope IMCS might be able to join us in some of our reflections and actions on that. A few years ago, at the 90th anniversary of Pax Romana, in a meeting that we had together between IMCS and ICMICA in Cologne, Germany, Father Chris McCoy, the then IMCS International Chaplain, he made an analogy that talked about Pax Romana as having, the movement of Pax Romana having two lungs. One lung as IMCS and one lung as ICMICA. He insisted that in order for both movements to function, we need each other. Right? Both lungs that we have need each other. We can maybe survive on our own, but it'll be healthier. It'll be more vibrant if we work together. I think that's a message that I'd like to repeat from the ICMICA side, right? Many if not most of our ICMICA members come out of IMCS, and I know are committed to the mission of students and to the student leadership and to affirming and supporting student leadership. So I think we can find better ways of collaborating. We can also find better ways of zoning in on those young professionals, that sort of mix of people who are transitioning out of IMCS and then finding it difficult to go, where do I find support now that I'm in my professional life? So how do we provide spaces of support for young professionals? I think that's an interesting area that I know at the national level our movements are working at. But we need to deepen this partnership. Going forward, especially as we look to 2021, the centenary of Pax Romana, I want to draw our attention to a few areas where we can partner. So I'd invite you to keep this in mind as you meet this week. First, I think we need to really clearly plan celebrations for 2021. A few months ago, back in March, ICMICA had its International Council in Fribourg, Switzerland, our historic home. I had the chance to meet with leaders in the university there, as well as the bishop and others. There's openness on the part of people in Fribourg to organize a one-day colloquium in 2021, but there isn't much openness to do much more than that. So our invitation to us is that we collaborate on some sort of one-day event, symbolic event in Fribourg, but we also figure out of something else we can do. Maybe in Rome, maybe somewhere else. ICMICA is planning to have our plenary assembly that year, so that could provide an opportunity for collaboration with IMCS in something. We hope we can develop that conversation. Second, I think we need to deepen our partnership on the international coordination and the international office. I think both IMCS and ICMICA might want to consider reconnecting at the international level, even physically. There are some practical details about that, but without changing or challenging the autonomy of the student movement, I think we could partner logistically and share resources there. How we do that, whether it's through some sort of training center or just more practically or basically some sort of collaboration there, we're open to that. We'd have to work out those details. So I hope we can continue that conversation. Edward and I had several conversations about this. It's a long conversation that's happened over the years. I think we just need to find ways to move on that. If you are open to it. Third, we need to find ways to develop resources together on spirituality. I think this is a really interesting, exciting space for us to collaborate. How can we find members, former members? How can we find chaplains to help to articulate what this spirituality of action means and what are some resources around it? I think there could also be some useful resources that we could develop together on building small communities and building national movements in ways where it would apply for both students and professionals. I think we could work together practically on this, and as well as resources on things like Catholic social teaching, on liberation theology, on questions about human rights. I think there are some practical tools that we can use, especially if there are IMCS people who are really good at technology. We can find ways of sharing those ideas. So in summary, I'm really happy that you all are meeting. I know that it's a big challenge to organize international meetings. It always has been since our very beginning. But I am with you, and I know that God is with you too. And I'm thinking and praying for you as you go in your discussions here. I'll be around by Skype or by WhatsApp if anyone wants to consult with me. Happy to respond to some questions. Thanks a lot. God bless you all. Bye.